Welcome to Adoption Side by Side podcast, because no one should have to walk the adoption journey alone. I'm Steph.
And I'm Andrea. We walk the journey together, and we want to walk it with you, if you'll have us. Hello, friends. Today's episode was recorded with Stephanie and I at the podcast mic, and our special guest appeared by Zoom. Because Zoom is run using the internet, occasionally the internet connection would falter, so we have a few minor audio glitches. We apologize for this, and we appreciate you sticking with us amateur podcasters. Now please enjoy today's episode.
All right, so on today's episode, we have a caseworker that helped Alex and I with our adoption, Becky Merryman. She is from Building Arizona Families, but today she is here as an adoptive mother herself. She has two grown sons that she felt that she could give us a good perspective on what it is like adopting and then doing all of the things that you need to do to help yourself and your children process that over time. So we have questions, but she's just going to share her story as well. So thank you, Becky, for joining us today.
Thank you for having me. Excited to share. I love sharing my story, our family story, because mom through adoption was just the most amazing thing in my life. Not being able to have a biological child and then coming to the realization that it was not meant for that, but growing family through adoption was meant to be our family journey was a process, but it was just so eye-opening when we came to that realization that that's what the plan was for our life and for our family. We started out our process many years ago. My oldest son is just turned 29 this week, and our youngest is 26. So I feel that, I've got a lot to share going through all of the stages and all of the stages of questions that have come along the way. We started out our process realizing, as I think the majority of parents that are growing their family through adoption, like, how on earth are we going to afford to do this? And we just put it in God's hands and just went for it, figuring that things would fall into place because that was God's plan for our life. When we started, we were thinking that the only way we were going to be able to do this would be adopting out of foster care. But then we found that God did have another plan, and that was adopting a newborn. And so we started our process, got our home study completed, and just that day and time, and I don't think parents do this now, but you just told everybody that you were looking for a baby to adopt because you never know where that baby's going to come from.
Right.
And, and it was old school, doing research. I was going to the library. There wasn't internet to be looking up to find the answers. So, coming home with a huge pile of books from the library, that was also interesting. Also just meeting people through infertility support groups that we went to at one of the churches here in the area. And we just continued through. We started in January of 1996, started our home study and our classes. And in, I want to say, late May, just after Mother's Day, when I pretty much had a massive meltdown, crying in the bathroom, why I went to church on Mother's Day that year, I don't know.
I remember Mother's Day the year we were adopting too. It hit a little harder than all the other Mother's Days did.
Yeah, that was really hard. But right after that is when we were connected with a young woman who was needing to make an adoption plan. And we met her. And my goodness, we drove away from meeting her, and I told my husband, this is it. She's it. That is the birth mother. And of course, in all husbands' way, they're to guard our hearts and to help protect us. And he said, now don't get ahead of yourself. Let's just, this is the first one we've met. We don't know. And I said, I don't care what you say. This is it. So she was actually due in October of 1996. So we really just truly had a pregnancy time. Starting out from January, we had doing everything. It was that we went to I tell families all the time in my professional life, don't expect birth mothers to go to their doctor's appointments. And I can personally attest to that. We had no substance exposure. There wasn't things going on like that, but there was not a lot of prenatal care. It was very limited. And of course, before we were all carrying cell phones all over, it didn't have an agency. We met her through a friend, and I would show up at doctor's appointments, and there were times that I was there, but there was nobody to go to that appointment. So that happens, and adoptive parents have to be prepared for that, because they just don't attend their doctor's appointments. Just fast forwarding a little bit, we were just talking about this with our son, that we went to the ultrasound appointment where we found out the gender, and not knowing how to respond. I mean, like, do we show excitement? Do we cry? All of the emotions that are in us, but we didn't want to overwhelm our, expectant mama here. And so we kind of just held it in, like we were excited, but we didn't show all of our emotions. And we were just recalling this, getting in the car and watching her pull off. And then all of a sudden be like, all of that excitement and screaming, like, this is so exciting that we were having a boy. And then he came about 3 weeks early. And we kind of expected that. He has a biological brother that is 11 months older than him. So I wasn't sure she'd make it all the way to the whole being that close. So that was unique experience there. One, just because we didn't know anything about it. We didn't know what it was going to look like at the hospital. We had no support at the hospital because we only had an attorney. And we were there when he was born.
Right.
And then we sat in the waiting room all night long. At the hospital, we're like, you're not coming in here with this baby. And birth mother had asked them to let us in, but that didn't happen.
Right. Is that something you feel like has changed a little more in recent years?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah.
Definitely has. Because I think then, just the adoption where adoptive parents were there at the hospital was just becoming a thing at that time. But they were literally went in. We were standing outside the nursery just looking at him with his biological grandmother, and they came out and they asked who we were, and they walked back in and they closed the blinds of the nursery.
Oh my goodness.
Wow.
Yeah.
So hard.
Yeah. So big difference. Because now, sometimes you get to be in labor and delivery, and you get to be a baby. So until after business hours the next morning, where we could contact our attorney, she had to end up calling the medical director of the hospital to be able to get in with him. But then we brought him home that same day. So it went, very quickly. That feeling, I will sometimes tell families this 72-hour time, because Arizona, the time 72 hours. So you've got those 3 days. And I said, it is the longest 72 hours of your life. It's going to seem like an eternity. Then it's also going to seem like it was nothing.
Right.
So it was 72 hours back then as well?
Yes.
Okay, so for Arizona, it hasn't changed. Okay.
No, it hasn't changed. Yeah, that 72-hour time was, I didn't think about it a lot because I felt like I had no concerns. I was very confident that she's going to follow through with her plan, because I knew that this was God's design for our family.
Right.
And he had it all in control. It was, I had that complete faith. But man, when the attorney called that she signed, it was like, days of stress that just fell off. Oh my goodness. Just crying, just almost uncontrollable.
I'm sure. Well, especially because at that point you've taken baby home. You weren't even there waiting in the hospital. Like, that baby was already there, and you could picture your life with that child.
Yeah, we had him home because he was discharged. He wasn't even 24 hours old, which they don't even do that quickly now. I look back and I'm like, wait, he didn't have his 24-hour testing. Just something. But it was good. We did not have they call it semi-open then. We just show pictures and updates.
Okay.
Which most people do have, was pictures and updates. Of course, back then, old school, we're printing out from a camera and writing a handwritten letter, mailing pictures. That was definitely a difference of what it is now. But, I love being able to share with her how amazing our son was. He was our son, all of us, of us. And I was like, no, he's crying in that picture, or no, he doesn't have a happy. I wanted to see how happy and healthy he was all the time. That was just a really big thing to me. I will say that becoming a mom through adoption, there was a self-imposed feeling, and I don't know if you've experienced or you've talked to anyone who's experienced, like, I have to do better and I have to be better.
We talk about it all the time. All the time we're saying, like, are we doing it? Like, if we're having a rough day, it's, am I doing enough? And we're both stay-at-home moms now to be with our babies that we worked hard and everything for and waited so long for. And just the other day, Andrea was texting me. She was like, I'm not getting enough sleep. I don't feel like I'm being the best mom. And I'm like, Andrea, you're there with him every single day. He might be climbing the walls, but you're standing beside him while he's climbing the walls. Like, yes, you are. But no, I felt instantly the bond with our son. And I know that's not the case for all adoptive moms, but I instantly felt bonded with him. But there are like those days where I'm like, am I doing everything I should be doing to connect and everything? And I mean, I think I am because he's so connected to me. But there is that like fear in the back of my head.
Yeah, and I feel like there were, especially during the early nights where, no sleep and all that good stuff. I have a picture of our son with his birth mom in his room. And I would like look over at that picture and be like, am I doing enough for you? I want to do this right for you with this gift you've entrusted me. And it did kind of feel like another layer of that.
I think we do put that. I mean, as moms, we beat ourselves up anyways about things that we just as women do in general. But it was that extra layer of I have to do better. So it was not only that I was his mom, and I had that same feeling of just instant bonding with him. Like I truly felt that connection the moment I met his birth mother. Like there was an absolute connection there with her and with him. And I mean, so much so that like I was having heartburn, and then she would be like, "Oh my goodness, I've been having such bad heartburn." And I'm like, that happened. And then I just went through like a month of like, I'd say butterflies in my stomach, like this feeling of something. And I would meet her and talk to her, and she's like, "Oh my goodness, he is just moving just nonstop." And I'm like, okay, this is just weird.
Yeah.
But then I also, again, it's God's design.
Absolutely.
I knew the day he was going to be born. He came 3 weeks early. I told my husband he's going to be born tomorrow.
That's so crazy.
3 weeks early, and I said, he's going to be here tomorrow. He was born at 11:59 the next day. So
you had it right. Yeah. You got the timing. You're right now.
Right. But yes, even just having that bond and everything, it was just that I'm not just mom, but somebody chose to place him with me and chose me to be his mom and bless me with this. So I just felt I needed to be more than that. That was something that took a long time, like even into later elementary years, that I had to still work on. So just so you know, it's all natural and normal, but don't beat yourselves up over that at all. Because at the end of the day, you're just mom.
Right.
Yeah.
And nobody came with the handbook.
That's right.
So.
And that first child is kind of your experiment here. So we'll see how that one turns out.
Yeah, well, they say, somebody recently said, I tell her oldest all the time that you're growing up, but I'm growing up with you too, in the sense of being a mom. And he's old enough now that she'll apologize. Like if she yelled at him or did something, he'll be like, it's okay, Mom. You're learning too. And she was like, oh, the understanding that he has, but she goes, also the fact that like he knows that. She goes, so I need to watch that because I don't want him to think that every wrong move I make, it's because I'm learning, that sometimes it's just being an adult and all of that. But yeah, so just things to keep in mind.
Yeah. So all of that, then fast forward to 2.5 years later, we're just like, okay, we're ready to do this again. And we just went into it like whatever happens, happens. We started our home study. We weren't in any rush because we had a 2.5-year-old. We started, Zach is our oldest, and he had just turned 2 in October. So we started again in January, maybe a little bit later than January, started with our visits. And then just slowly moving along. And in July of that year, we got a phone call from the social worker who was doing our home study. She's like, do you guys have a profile book yet? And I'm like, profile? What's a profile book? I did that for Zach. So I didn't know.
Right.
I said, no, we don't have anything. She goes, can you send me a picture and a letter? I just have the baby for you. And we're like, okay. And she goes, well, he was born 3 weeks ago.
Oh, man.
And he is here in the NICU. He was born 10 weeks premature.
Okay.
And, well, hang on a second. We're like, doesn't really matter. We're in 100%.
Right.
And then 10 days later, we brought him home. And a tiniest little thing and a super, super, super excited big brother.
Aww.
Yeah, he was still very tiny. He was under 4 pounds when we brought him home from the hospital.
Wow.
And just an amazing birth mother. That experience, both of our situations with our birth mothers, it was amazing because I really felt that they were doing the best for them, for their child. What they thought was best, and that sacrifice. As I said, we provided pictures and updates for our old one. This one was going to be a little bit different. She had asked for visits twice a year, and we look back and we're like, we just said yes to everything. I don't know that we. I think we just said yes, and then figured everything would fall into place. And my husband's like, no, we thought about it. And I said, I don't think we did. And not that was a bad thing. It was actually just an absolute wonderful thing, but a scary thing.
Right.
Entering into a new situation, not understanding what would come ahead. But again, like moms, we're growing, we're all growing together and figuring it out together. So we brought him home. And of course, that started a whole other life with having a preemie and being, therapies and early intervention and getting all of those resources set up and in place. So that was all new. And then, then your adoption process and finish all of that. And then coming up to that first in-person visit after.
How soon after was it?
I'm going to back up just a second because his birth mother was very young, and I thank God for her so much because she was on summer break from school, and he was and needed somebody there, and she was there with him every day.
That's amazing. It's beautiful.
And fed him because there's so many babies that just get left in a NICU and nobody's there to hold them and love them.
Right.
And I know that made a huge difference in how well he did.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, making him be able to get out of the NICU so much sooner.
Right.
With him being so early. And I felt, though, we spent 3 days with him and a lot of time with her. And I connected with her as well. I remember leaving the hospital and seeing her crying when she came there when we left. And we all said our goodbyes, and I cried. And we were we were out of town. We were in another city here in Arizona doing that. And my husband's like, you got to stop crying because I'm going to cry. And like, I cried the whole, oh, goodness gracious, at least for a half an hour. Coming home, I remember that. I remember sitting in the back seat and looking at him and being so in love with him. And so, I don't want to say heartbroken, but so thankful for what she did, but also heartbroken for, seeing her heart
Absolutely.
out there. So it was a little scary when we came up to that first visit. Like, what is it going to be like? Is it going to be super emotional?
Right.
With him being a preemie, he was very attached to me. And I was afraid, like, what if he cries? Because in my mind, you got to see how happy he is and how wonderful, how amazing. And he cries when he's not with me, when I'm not holding him. And I was so nervous about it, and it went great. I mean, he was a little bit cranky, but it went good.
But he's a baby, so that is understandable.
Yeah. So we continued those visits as he was growing up. And Zach, our oldest, had a little bit of confusion, like, we're going to go see my birth mother.
Oh, okay.
Or our birth mother. He was connecting my youngest to his. And I'm like, no. And my husband and I had to have that conversation, like, we're bringing Zach along, and Anthony's birth mother was amazing. And she got something for Anthony. She always got something for Zach too. And so she was loving on both of them. And I think that was amazing. And but then Zach was having that confusion, and we're like, okay, we probably need to maybe do some separation a little bit. So we started doing the visits where we were just going with Anthony. After that, that we did all together, just because of, if we were doing some type of activity. Sometimes we went to a water park one time, and it included more, Anthony's biological cousins. And so we kind of connected in there and had that relationship. I do think that, looking back, I wish that I got to have that with both of my son's birth mothers. I know that it wasn't a possibility, just because everybody, as I've always told Zach, everybody heals differently, and they all deal with things differently. And this is how this birth mother did. This is how your birth mother did. But there was times that, it was, you had a child, older elementary, processing and understanding things differently as they do when they get older. Why don't I get to see my birth mother, but Anthony does? That was definitely, that was a hard one. And we both just sat on the floor and cried because I didn't have an answer. And sometimes that's okay to do as a mom. When we don't have an answer, is just to say, I don't know. I don't know. But also that time of reassuring, saying, listen, that's the way it happened, and that's the way it needed to happen for her. But you were always meant to be with mom and dad. And I always use the verse, God knew you before you were in your mother's womb. And I would tell my boys, I don't know why God chose to grow you in someone else's womb, in someone else's belly, but you were always meant to be mine. I think that has been come back out of their mouths at future times.
I'm sure.
And so much of that, but I do believe that, because I think that I know that God designed everything, and it was meant to be. My kids both of my boys are a lot like me and my husband. So I know that a lot of that's learned behavior, but even my daughter-in-law has laughed about, of course you said that, because that's exactly what Zach would have said. So she's even seen it. So.
Yeah.
But it was definitely a learning process of maneuvering through the openness of one and not having an openness of the other one.
Right.
Yeah.
But I also think that it was all designed perfectly. Anthony is biracial, and I think having a biological connection is good for him to have.
Yeah, right. Okay.
It gave him something a little bit more of questions that he might have had that could be answered.
Okay.
Yeah, that was a blessing. Again, I still would go back and try to have them both open if I could. But I love that I got to have that. But the questions, I would recommend to adoptive parents, don't stress about what you're going to say to answer the questions. When they have questions about their birth parents, tell them as much as you know, but always answer things age appropriately. I mean, as anything with parenting, they ask questions, you're going to answer them age appropriate, you know.
Right.
But as they get older, there's more that you can share. And then when they, you know, we had this conversation a few times, and I remember telling Zach, my husband and I both, anytime, after you turn 18, if you want to find your birth parents, we're here, we can do that. That's up to you. And then when Zach turned he turned 16, 17 years old, it was more of I get it. I get why when you told me that everybody heals differently, everyone deals with things differently, now I understand. I get it with Anthony and his birth mother, and I get it with my birth mother. It makes sense to me now. So talk to your kids, make sure that you're just being open, because our story was adoption. That's how we grew our family. And you don't keep thinking about the fact that your child is yours through adoption as they grow up either. Honestly, you know it, but it's not there. Funny situation is that our house was the hangout house, and I always had way more children in my house. I just would grow.
Yeah. Right.
And I remember one weekend, I'm like, okay, it had been fall break. They've been at my house for at least a day and a half. And I said, listen, you guys need to go home. I can't do anymore. I've got, 7 teenage boys, let alone my 2 in my house. And I said, they're like, no, we can't go. And I said, listen, if you are not my biological child, you need to. Came out of my mouth. I was like, and my boys they love to play on all of that. They're like, okay, we're out.
Oh, man.
If I did not claim you on my taxes, you're out.
That's great.
But those are the things, just going through it. I don't think we had any really difficult questions. It was just questions about, why did they make that choice? And I explained to it, where they were in their life, and this is what they felt was best for you. And they did it because they loved you more than themselves.
Right.
And how selfless it was. Because I feel that choice is the most selfless choice. Yeah. And it doesn't matter what is going on in their life. They love that baby so much. They've made this choice for them. And I believe that with all of my heart, because no matter what, their birth mothers do love them, and they love them just as much as I do. I just got the privilege to raise them.
Right.
So it was amazing to be able to do that.
Did Zach ever reconnect with his biological mom?
So I kind of did that. Okay. And that was just recently in the last couple of years.
Okay.
And he has, in a roundabout way, connected, but it's different.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, there's a difference between someone you saw so often growing up versus somebody that meeting much later in life.
Right.
And yeah.
Right. And honestly, the connection is more my connection.
Right.
What we did have, and I didn't mention this, was this was another God thing in our life and in our adoption, was we had heard about an attorney through the infertility group that we were going to. So we didn't know what to do after we met his Zach's birth. So we called her and we're like, hey, so we heard about you through da 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 da. And she goes, oh my goodness. She goes, I worked with her just last year with her placement. She goes, I guess that the family wasn't able to do another adoption. And she goes, okay, that's no problem. We'll work together. And she even gave me a discount. Says no lawyer ever. But anyways, after Zach was born, we asked her to somehow connect us with his biological brother and his brother's parents.
Okay.
And I used to call us Christmas card friends because we sent each other Christmas cards. Later on, after, cell phones and email and everything was the thing, we started connecting through email and then by phone. And they lived in another state, so the boys did not actually meet face to face, but we probably, I want to say 16, 17, Zach was. We put them together, let them share their phone numbers so they could start texting. They played video games together online. Yeah. And then for Zach's 18th birthday, we actually had him come down and visit for his 18th birthday, and he stayed with us for the weekend.
Nice.
So that was fun because it was seeing like everybody's watching like how much, it was that nature versus nurture thing. Right. We did figure out that his mom and I must have similar personalities, and the connection with him and his mom was like mine and Zach.
That's so funny.
So that was really funny. But even through the years, we would talk and like they were very active boys. They were, boys, let's go, let's play, kind of a thing. But with it being Zach's 18th birthday, we also had family that had come in town. We had planned this big party, and everybody, it was like they were on display. Everybody's watching, and then they're like, oh, this is my brother, and this is my brother's brother, but he's not my brother. And that was a real fun weekend of all of that. My boys love to do that anyway. So, and then I just really appreciated that we had that connection, and it gave Zach a biological connection, always knowing about his brother and having that connection, even so much when Zach and his wife for their wedding, his brother and his brother's parents came to the wedding. Other thing of people watching, like, wait, is that Zach's biological parents? No, that's his brother's parents.
Right.
Like Zach's parents, so that was fun to have that.
When you first told Zach that he had that biological brother and that there was a relationship built there, how did he process that information from knowing that I don't have a connection kind of with birth mom, but there's a brother out there that it seems like I can have more of a connection with?
We had started so openly talking about it from the time he was little that there wasn't a oh my goodness, I have.
Okay.
There was a time that in elementary where he asked, does he know who our birth mother is, and talk to her? And I said, no, he doesn't have that either. So I think that there was that connection of he had that. So, the connection was he had his biological brother. And there are some reports that say that connection with the biological sibling sometimes is more important. Yeah. Okay. I shouldn't say more important to, but it is enough for their biological connection other than a birth parent.
Okay. Yeah, I remember hearing in one of the classes we did that often children who are adopted seem to have almost more of an interest in learning about their biological siblings. And I thought that was really interesting.
Was there ever a period in either of your sons' lives that they showed anger towards any aspect of the adoption? And if so, how did you navigate those waters? Or because you were so open with them from almost the beginning, they didn't ever have that?
I never had that where they communicated it to us.
Okay.
We didn't have any acting out.
Okay.
of those emotions, or we never had them verbalized to us.
Okay.
Never. I mean, I've had people say, well, they said, well, you're not my real mom. And I'm like, I haven't had that.
Okay.
Did they have those feelings? I don't know. If they did, they never communicated them to us. We definitely made opportunity for them to communicate those feelings to us, but we didn't. Unfortunately, well, actually, not unfortunately.
Yeah, it's a blessing.
I have that to share. So I don't know how to say anything as far as navigating that part of the relationship.
Do you think talking to them from the very beginning and like them always having that understanding that your family was built from adoption, do you think that's what helped that as they grew? They just had this understanding that this is how our family was built, and therefore there wasn't ever a need for that anger to come in, maybe.
I do feel that way.
Okay.
I really do. We read books to them. I'm sure I know that I gave you a book that said, tell me again.
It's on our bookshelf. We don't read it often because it's not one he picks. We're into cars and trucks and all that right now. But it's there, and there are days that I will pick it out and we'll sit down and we'll read it. Or we have the Night You Were Born, I think is either you gave us or Jack gave us. And it's one that talks about, I knew the minute I saw you and like loved you and all of that. So yeah, no, definitely books we read. And I actually made us a note that we should probably talk about books to read to your young ones.
We have one that I love. I think the title is just Chosen, and my parents got it for me kind of for Christmas, but the year we announced like we're adopting, we're doing this fundraiser and all this. And I love it because the beginning is all very pictures and simple language for kids, but in the back there's some more detailed questions for older children. There's one page that's so awesome. I forget what name they give the person. Asking intrusive questions, how do you answer that?
Oh, that'd be good.
Kid, a teen, like what are some good answers you can teach your children if someone is too invasive or just asking questions they're not comfortable answering yet. So I liked that. So
no, my aunt gave us a book. It's called We Are a Family. And you wouldn't think just of that cover title. And she didn't think it either, but when she read it, she was like, this was like the most perfect book. It was about how families all look different. And nowhere does it talk about adoption, but it talks about, and it's animals are the families in this one. So it's like showing zebras and elephants and giraffes around the dinner table. But she was like, I thought it was perfect because without saying it, it's saying that families all look different no matter how they are made up. And it's a book that we pull often because he loves it because of the animal aspect of it. And so we're reading that like not all families look alike. And that's okay. And we all need to love each other. So
that is important. We did have that with Anthony being biracial. His skin is darker. And he went through a phase where he was upset that his skin was darker than ours.
Okay.
It's like between 4 and 6.
Huh.
So I felt it was a little young, but it really did. And I remember I said, let's all put our hands together. And so we just kind of stacked our hands on each other. And then it was looking at daddy's skin, mommy's skin, Zach's and Anthony's. I said, all of us were created the color that God wanted us to be. Daddy's skin tone's this, mine is this, Zach's is this, and yours is that. That helped a little bit in a 4-year-old mind.
Right.
But I know that there was still processing. And so I don't necessarily know when we talk about feelings of anger about adoption, but I feel that there was just a little bit of I'm different than you because I am dark. Even though we weren't, like the church we were involved in, it was diverse. We had that support, but I always wanted to make sure that he felt, at that time, my brother is very dark skinned. He just naturally has darker skin. And so I was like, Uncle Tim has darker skin and he's my brother and he's my biological brother.
Right.
And it's clearly different, and especially different than your other uncle and aunt, my sister, our other sister and brother. We did point that out, but just navigating through things and then also just hearing him because of that, the race, learning of the race, and then figuring out what he's identifying as.
Right.
Because racial, he's dark, but he has very teeny amount an American. I mean, I think it's like 10%. I 2%.
Sure.
But his biracial part is Hispanic and another and Filipino.
Okay.
So figuring out like where Hispanic, African American, because he has darker skin, trying to figure out where he fits in the whole race thing. And I think it was good that we at least had diversity amongst our church, our community, and our schools. The schools that they went to were definitely helping that, but that was definitely navigating through those questions. It was questions more from other people. So that's what brought me to that was when you talk about people's comments. I remember when we brought Zach to church for the first time, and there was an elderly man, and he said, "Oh, now you're going to have one of your own." And I'm sitting there, and I looked at him, and with astonishment, and I said, "Well, God gave me one of my own. He's right here in my arms. I don't know how else I would have one of my own right now. He's it."
Right.
Yeah, I hear that comment all the time. Everyone's like, now you'll have a baby because that's what happens to everyone. And there are plenty of people that's happened to, I can say that, but that's not the case for everyone, and that's not something we're trying to achieve, and that child is our own child.
I had that happen a lot. Well, you've adopted, so now you're going to get pregnant. No, that's not a statistic. That's not a thing. Like, I've adopted and that child is now mine, and that's probably it. Like, there's no research that says you've adopted. Oh, now you get to biologically have a child too. Nope, that's not how that works.
I had it assumed that Anthony was a foster child. Like, why?
Right.
First of all, why are you even talking to me?
Yes.
I'm shopping and I don't even know you. You just look and like, I said, why would you say that about my child?
Right.
It's your business, but this is my child, so goodbye. It is funny, though, when they grow up with all of their friends who it's just so normal and natural.
Right.
Yeah. Like, completely. In their friends' minds, they knew that Zach and Anthony were adopted. They have fun personalities, both of them. And when they were in high school, it was like, I know it's hard for people to get it. I was adopted, and I look just like my mom. And they would look at Anthony and look at me and, whatever, trying to figure out, what are you talking about? Like,
right.
The whole thing, trying to put it all together.
Now that your sons are older and maybe they're building their own families, how has that looked? Like for the wives and the girlfriends, knowing that you might not know all the information of the family, like the bio family history.
That has come up. That did come up later for Zach.
Okay.
I mean, we had that for Anthony because we had that connection. So if something came up, it was like, let me, text birth mom and have an answer. But with Zach, we didn't have that luxury. And he's like, Mom, I don't know any of my medical history. I don't know anything. And I don't either. I don't know it. And I said, well, we can look at it in two different ways. One way is sometimes you get sick because you worry about that because it's in your history, and then you don't have that worry. But on the other hand, it is good to know to be cautious about things. But it did come up, and then it was like, maybe I should find my biological family because I don't have these answers. So those things have come up. So yeah, it's come up as they've gotten older. It hasn't really been a huge, oh my goodness, kind of a situation. It's just been something that we've talked about, but I'm sure that if there had been health concerns, that it may have been a different situation.
Okay. Now for that, like, if you needed to get a hold of BioMom, is it possible through your attorney to have gotten in contact with her to see about something, or that portion is closed off?
That was closed, but now that we have found a way to be in contact with her, we can get answers.
Okay.
if we needed them. One thing that I did talk about, and not knowing complete medical history, was you need to talk about stay away from drugs, don't drink, don't do drugs, and all of that. And my thing about that was a little bit different when I started talking to them. I don't touch it. We have no idea what your chemical makeup is. We have no idea what your biological history is. And if you have a family who has addictive disorders, that could affect you, and it could be one time and you're done.
Right.
And I got one drug addict on the street that says this was my life goal. Tried something, break a habit. And a lot of times it's a tendency that you don't even know that you biologically. Right. So the discussion about substance use was different. It definitely took on a different road, went down a different road than a regular talk about drugs.
Absolutely.
Didn't think of that one either.
Yeah, I didn't either.
On that extra level of scare tactic, don't do drugs.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
As parents, that you have to pound that in.
Yeah.
That just gave that extra little scare tactic in there. But it was a truthful.
Right. Yeah, absolutely.
And I felt it was enough to point that out to them.
I was curious how, since you adopted in the 90s and now you currently work in adoption, what are some things you've seen that have really changed in adoption over the years, whether it's laws or if it's the attitudes surrounding adoption and how people think of it? So what would you say are the biggest changes that have occurred over the years?
Goodness, that's a hard one. Laws here in Arizona really haven't changed.
Okay.
There was a change in laws regarding birth fathers right before we did our first adoption, and those laws have stayed intact, which I think is really good. They protect adoptive parents. Again, not having enough resources back then, I would say the amount of people who see it as an easy target to screw. And I think maybe that's because of social media and it's so easy to get in contact with people, where that wasn't the case in the 90s. Yeah, you didn't see that kind of situation because people were not able to just get in contact just randomly through online. I mean, not that scamming is a huge part, but it definitely is a part of adoption. See that it's not. So I think that has definitely been a change, but that's definitely due to the social media. Clearly, the financial side of it has just it is a lot. Right. I did answer any questions.
Did, yes.
That is a huge, huge change. As far as attitudes about it, I still think that there's a lot of misunderstanding regarding it. Of not still that whole thing of like, oh, well, your own kid or your adopted child. I'm like, that's my own kid. I raised him, and quite honestly, talk to him for 5 minutes. You will see that he's my child.
Right.
Because, we all are nonstop talkers. But I still think that there's, I don't know how to say it. It's misunderstanding. I guess there's no other term. Not misunderstanding, not a clear understanding. People still have questions, but they're nervous to ask. They don't want to come right out and ask because they don't want to be offensive, or they ask and they are offensive. I know that there is having social media, TikTok and Twitter, especially TikTok, where there is quite a bit of negativity around adoption. Especially if your child is not the exact race as you.
Right.
And that can be very hurtful to adoptive families, to kiddos as they're growing up, because here they're loved and they feel safe and comfortable. And then they think, well, wait a minute, am I supposed to be feeling something different than I feel right now? So I love to hear when adoptees or birth mothers talk and share their positive stories so that not just getting the negative stories out there, and adoptees being comfortable in their situation and how their family grew.
Right.
So change has definitely just the social media aspect of it, just because the bashing, I guess, of it
Yeah.
on social.
Yeah, which is such a shame. Such a
Mhm.
shame. And it's one thing for someone to share their personal experience and it not be a good experience. I mean, there are adoptions that from all parties were hard or they have feelings they're expressing, but I feel like social media is really cluttered with the negative and there's just not enough voices speaking up for the positive. It's a part of why we're doing what we're doing. Not to say it's all sunshine and roses but we need to hear some of the positive. We need to hear that there is good in this. And even though it starts from a place of heartbreak or brokenness, sometimes on both parties, both sides, but it can lead to such beautiful families. And that's important to have out there.
You have the opportunity to educate yourself, and that's now way more than back then.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
And every adoptive family needs to take advantage of that.
Right.
Because you're still dealing with the fear of openness in adoption. Like, I'm mom. It's okay that there's a birth mom, and it's okay that you have contact, because that can be a huge blessing. And it definitely is a huge blessing in the child's life and that whole connection. I wouldn't trade it for anything in the world.
So, what are you most grateful for as you look back on your family's story?
I'm grateful that interruption. I know people go through that. And I've told people when I've had to call them to tell them that there's a disruption, I cry. I don't cry when I'm on the phone. Well, there's been times that I've cried with them on the phone, but that impacts me as an adoption professional. But I am so thankful that never happened. I look back and I think our family was designed perfectly the way it was supposed to be designed. Our children God created them to be ours. And, our kids say that too. Our family was meant to be, but that's how we feel. And we raised our kids to feel that same way. People will say, well, did you miss getting to be pregnant? I'm like, well, I don't know. I mean,
right.
I don't think I did. I don't feel like I missed anything. I feel like that was resolved because our plan, what was designed for our family, was to grow.
Yeah.
It wasn't, this is a condolence, over.
Yeah,
Right,
exactly.
right.
Grand prize. I didn't feel that way. I won. I got my boys.
Absolutely.
And I wouldn't change anything. I wouldn't go back, and if I got to do it over, I wouldn't change a thing. I would grow my family just exactly the way we did.
It's beautiful.
Yeah, absolutely.
And then just one last question. What would you tell a mom and a dad, but more a mom since you're coming from the mom perspective, currently in the middle of their adoption journey, whether it's the journey of leading into a match, they're matched, or like us, we're living it with our little ones, especially on the hard days? What would you advise for them?
Don't beat yourself up, and remember that you're not in control of everything. When you're in the process of it, you're not in control. And it's okay that you're not in control. And that's in that process of leading up to it and that match and waiting for those papers to be signed. And it's okay, and trust that things are going to work out. Because no matter what, at the end of the day, your baby is there somewhere. And that baby right there or the next one, you do have a destined child. As far as after and just parenting, take it easy on yourself. Okay, you don't have to be the perfect mother. You don't have to put it on yourself, and remind yourself of that. It's okay. I'm just a mom, and I'm learning.
Thank you, Becky. We so appreciate that perspective and just thankful to hear from someone who has been through all the stages of life with your kids and now into adulthood. And we really appreciate you sharing your story. It was really beautiful.
Thank you for having me. I loved it.
Oh, good. Thank you.
I'm going to close us out today with a word of prayer. God, I just thank you so much for Becky, for her testament to your goodness, for this beautiful story of how her sons came into her life. And I thank you for all these good words of wisdom she shared today for parents trying to navigate adoption or navigate having those discussions with their children. And we just really appreciate her willingness to share so openly about her own experiences, her own challenges and triumphs. And God, I pray today for our listeners, whatever part of this process that they're in, that you make your presence known to them today. You meet them in whatever stage of that journey they're in and bring them comfort and assurance today. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen.
Thank you for listening. We hope you enjoyed today's episode. You can find us on any major podcast platform and on Instagram at Adoption Side by Side to listen to more episodes and follow along in our personal adoption journeys as they change.